Hempstead, America's largest town and neighbor of New York City. I would now like to do a video on the public artworks within the town of Hempstead. Unlike neighboring New York City, which has the Public Art Fund, where the DOT puts artworks on Jersey barriers, where you have the Percent for Art law that puts artworks in police stations, firehouses, and schools, within the town of Hempstead, much of the public artwork depends on the hyper-local units of government. The library boards, the school boards, the villages, the hamlets, and the town. So not as much public artwork as New York City. And that's why I feel this video has a purpose. In this video, I'll talk about the artworks in the train stations, some of the memorials across the town, and the unique landmarks that are artistic in nature. This is the flag of the town of Hempstead, just the United States logo on a circle and a yellow flag. So let's begin. As I mentioned, most of the public artwork within the town is on the Long Island Railroad as a result of the MTA Arts and Design program. The railroad branches within the town include the Long Beach, Far Rockaway, West Hempstead, Hempstead, and Babylon branches. We'll begin within the Hempstead Station, a terminal station that has an artwork called Lost and Found by Ron Barron, installed in 2005 after the completion of the current train station building. This artwork has so much local details to it. A backpack with Hofstra University that's located within Hempstead. A basketball that reminds us of Julius Erving, who grew up in nearby Roosevelt. A Jets football, because that team practices at Hofstra. Yearbooks from Hempstead High School. A copy of the Newsday newspaper. And a model of the Long Island Railroad M9 trains that are soon to be retired on the luggage here at the Hempstead train station by Ron Barron. A good symbol of the town as people arrive and depart from here. The station has a very long history going back to the early mid-19th century, beginning initially at Fulton Street, which is also known as Hempstead's Turnpike or State Route 24, and then gradually pushed back by a block with a second building and then pushed back another block with its present building. The village of Hempstead is the town seat and has its own hyper-local unit of government. This is the Hempstead Village logo, which shows George Washington visiting the village in 1790 on his tour of Long Island in his first year as president. The village is now undergoing rezoning to create an urban core around the train station for transit-friendly development. A block to the south of the train station is the Rosa Parks bus terminal. Built in 1993 as the transit hub for the town, it was renamed after the civil rights activists in 2006. Inside is a permanent exhibit relating to the civil rights struggle with poetry and photography by Moneta Sleet Jr., Jim Pepler, and Herbert Randall, as Hempstead has a sizable and historic black community. So Rosa Parks bus terminal, the only bus stop in Hempstead that has artworks in it. Continuing on the Hempstead branch towards the city, the next station with an artwork is Stewart Manor, which has Come Back Home by Timothy Hyun-Soo Lee. Installed after a renovation of the station in 2018, it's 45 laminated glass panels inspired by watercolor paintings of local plant life based on Stewart Manor and Garden City with the colors of the seasons. The village of Stewart Manor, named after Alexander T. Stewart, a local developer who also built Garden City. And looking at the logo, you have United States, New York State, and Nassau County. So the federal, state, and county units of government on the village logo. Next stop towards the city on the Hempstead branch is Elmont UBS Arena, the newest station on the Long Island Railroad. It opened in 2022 and has artwork called Cyclical Everything by Shauna X, a graphic designer whose artwork has that oval shape of the horse racing track. For much of its history, Belmont Park had a Long Island Railroad station of its own, terminal station with a shuttle train to Jamaica. But instead, the Long Island Railroad decided to make the racetrack accessible to other branches by building a new station on the northern side of the complex. It's a bit of a walk to the grandstands and the hockey arena at Belmont Park. So there is a little shuttle van that goes there, or you could take the walk. But the station is also named Elmont, even though it's pretty far from the community of Elmont. But within the station, as I said, colorful oval shapes showing running and racing inspired by the venue. The station straddling the border of Nassau and Queens. Now we go to the south shore of Long Island and the south side of the town of Hempstead on the Babylon branch. The first station coming out of Queens is Valley Stream, and the artwork here is called On the Trail of the Rising Sun by Swedish-born artist Malin Abrahamsson, installed in 2008, showing the familiar lampposts, streetlights, and houses of Valley Stream. So these houses look very throughout Valley Stream and eastern Queens, the old pre-war suburbs. Next stop with artworks is at Belmore and Merrick. It's called The Narrative History of Merrick by Alan Sonfist, installed in 1993, with tiles that talk about the Ice Age, the rocks and plant life, the Native Americans, the sea life, and the arrival of the Europeans with their farming and seafaring tools that could be seen at this elevated station. The Babylon branch was elevated between the 1950s and 1970s to make it easier for cars to pass underneath the train tracks and improve train service. So at a time when New York City was removing some of its elevated subway lines, Long Island Railroad was elevating its trains. So there's concrete overpasses that stretch from Valley Stream to Babylon. The next artwork here is in Merrick, Connection Cultivating Communities by James Gulliver Hancock, that shows the local firehouses, schools, post offices, the water tower of Jones Beach, on this whimsical mosaic installed in 2018 at Merrick. Next example, Shoal by Dan Funderburg, also at Belmore. It shows ocean buoys and marine life, Lenape pottery shards and beads, and the marine life in a Delft pottery style that's inspired by traditional ceramics. Includes also images of the historic Belmore station before it was elevated. This is by Dan Funderburg. Next example, Where Dreams Come to Play by Mark Dennis, also installed in 2018 during the renovation of the South Shore stations. Now, the artwork here relates to Jones Beach State Park, the popular state park within the town of Hempstead on the open ocean. But you can't get to the beach here by public transportation. If you're taking the train to the bus, that transfer would be at Freeport. The station doesn't have public artworks yet. But if you're taking the bus to the beach, the bikeway to Jones Beach is along the Wantagh Parkway. So you would get off at the Wantagh station if you're walking or taking a bike. And this artwork shows the beach umbrellas, the skywriting, and the water tower of Jones Beach by Mark Dennis. Next example is in Seaford. Blue Sky Pursuit by Carson Fox, installed in 2009, shows the birds and butterflies and the plant life of Hempstead in this very nice station next to a park in Seaford. Having spoken about the railroad stations with the public artworks, let's get into the buildings of the town of Hempstead, the public buildings built by and for the public that have artworks in them. But before I do that, consider again this elevated railroad. When you look at the Miami Underline, a linear park that goes underneath an elevated train line, why not put some more artworks on the concrete? Murals and mosaics could fit here. Certainly at the Freeport transfer, where the bus goes to Jones Beach, I can imagine fish and waves appearing on the concrete. Many of the overpasses on the South Shore have the names of the communities and villages along the way. And certainly there could be more room for art on these overpasses. Then when you go to Garden City, there's a statue there of Alexander T. Stewart, the department store magnate who built Garden City and Stewart Manor. And Garden City being a sizable and affluent community, certainly there could be more artworks in this parking lot next to the tracks. Another place where I could imagine enhancements to the public art is at the memorials. Town of Hempstead has a lot of veterans, servicemen and women, and firefighters, police officers, first responders, and that's where there's so many memorials to them throughout the communities here. A lot of the memorials are located next to train stations. But what I would like to see is historical signs that highlight the namesakes of these parks and benches so people could sit down and admire these monuments. Examples that I post here include Rockville Center, Valley Stream, Freeport, Belmore as some of the examples here, and the courthouses of Nassau County. With the large plazas in front of them, there could be room for more sculptures and more historical signs on these otherwise blank spaces, reminiscent of New York City's City Hall Park, which certainly has its collection of sculptures. There are places in the town where street grids collide, creating triangular spaces, such as this one in Franklin Square and this one in North Valley Stream. Police Officer Giglio Plaza. Who was Officer Giglio? When did he serve? When did he die? Where did he live? There are no plaques or signs explaining the namesake, and I feel this site deserves it, so people could better understand how the park got its name. And that, of course, should also mean installing benches as people wait for the green light to cross. In the community of Oceanside, here's an example of an ideal civic monument. Oceanside has its history in fishing and seafaring. It is a waterfront community, and a former trolley turnaround loop was given a lighthouse. This lighthouse has plaques around it, benches. It has flags and a tree that's decorated during the winter holidays. This is an ideal civic monument, a fake lighthouse that reminds us that we are on Long Island and close to the sea. And I can imagine other civic spaces that do not have monuments being given something like this. And then you look at Baldwin, where you have this unusual X intersection of roads. Could also be a good place for a civic monument or triumphal sculpture to enhance the town's sense of place and identity. Likewise here at the beginning of Peninsula Boulevard, a county road that runs from Hempstead to the Rockaways. Eisenhower Park, the central park of Nassau County, has monuments from the World Wars to the Iraq War to 9/11. So a place of gathering for memorial events, and could even get its own video considering so much in Eisenhower Park. Hempstead has a public cemetery with a Civil War monument, as New York State sent the largest number of soldiers to fight in the Civil War, and that can be found in the publicly owned cemetery in Hempstead. And then there's the Nassau County seat, the capital of Nassau County, on the border of Mineola and Garden City, a building that had its cornerstone laid in 1900 by then President Theodore Roosevelt, a resident of Nassau County. And during the Great Depression in 1937, the Federal Art Project paid artist Robert Gaston Herbert to paint a series of murals highlighting the history of Nassau County, from the English settlers to the delineation of Suffolk and Queens counties, to the separation of Nassau and Queens, which led to the building of this capital, and to the creation of Nassau as part of the English colony of New York after the Dutch had given it up. Outside of the building, there is a statue of Theodore Roosevelt. But there's also room here for benches, historical signs, and more monuments. Next to the building is the police headquarters. Not much there in the way of artwork, just some plaques and memorabilia in the lobby of the building relating to the police work, but I can imagine more artworks there as well. The other important civic building is the main post office for the town of Hempstead. Built in 1936 as a federal project, the government also subsidized artist Peppino Gino Mangravite to paint a series of murals highlighting the history of the town, its aviation history on Hempstead Plains, bringing in the early airplanes and airships. Its farming history can be found here, and on the outside, very beautiful reliefs. It stands across the street from a telephone relay building that's also in the Art Deco style of the 1930s. And then there's the Hempstead Town Hall, the capital of the town seat, which had its original building in the 19th century that was then demolished in the early 20th century in favor of this replica of Independence Hall, but again, not much in the way of artworks in the building or around it. And then the mid-20th century, this modernist building that also offers very little in the way of creativity, inside or outside. And I can imagine more artworks put around the building and inside it to enhance its sense of place and its meaning. Now, having spoken about the parks and the artworks of the town, what should I do next? Within the town, there are historical sites, buildings that are designated by the town for their historical value. Perhaps that could be deserving of a video. Or maybe some of the streets with honorific names, usually honoring the veterans and first responders that live within the town. Perhaps the town and county roads could be a good video. Let me know in feedback as I give you more attention to America's largest town, because sometimes we feel like we're in the shadow of the Big Apple next door, but we have our own sense of place. Thank you for watching.